All right, well, Edition and Swishing podcast finally back. It's June 3rd, 2015. The basement recording somewhat live. Did not want to do this podcast today because I was hoping for a positive one with the Rangers making it into the Stanley Cup Finals, but alas, we are now watching the Tampa Bay Lightning versus Chicago Blackhawks here. Joe Carlin is unreliable as usual, so today we have Gene and a special friend, Joe Carlin, who's the blogger, the soccer and other miscellaneous item blogger on the site, so we're happy to have him here, and he'll give you all things FIFA since me and Gene are probably inept at doing that. So, hello, Joe. How's it feel? Do you feel like you're a big time now? You're in the basement doing the podcast?
Yeah, I finally feel pretty professional. Not just like a weird guy on my couch with a laptop on his lap and no shirt on, covered in crumbs.
And we have Gene here, who's still in his Bank of America attire. How are you doing, Gene?
It's going pretty good. I'm dressed up in a suit instead of on my couch covered in crumbs.
All right, well, there you go. So that's the life of a podcaster / blogger. So first things first, you know, we all watched the Rangers game. It was that magical ride that seemed to come to a crashing halt because the offense was stopped. And before we get into what the issues were and what we could have changed, and I'm sorry if you can't hear it because Gene's eating the whole bag of chips, but what it comes down to is that the season was a failure, and when you made the Stanley Cup Finals last year and you lose in 5 games, you have to win at least one more game than you did the previous year to be a better team, and they were not. And the team was the President's Trophy, and it's the President's Cup curse again because the team with the best record and most amount of points amounts to nothing as they're sitting home now watching these other two teams play. You had a Game 7 at home in your own building after you come back down, was a 10 game in that series. And you lose Game 5, you win Game 6. What am I saying? Am I right? No, you win.
Lose 5.
We lost 5, win Game 6. You know that Tampa was going to go back to their defensive style in Game 5, which they did in Game 7. They play the open style of hockey, and the Rangers kicked their teeth in. That's people said the Tampa Bay Lightning have too much speed. Well, the Rangers have just as much speed as they did. But I don't know why the coaching staff was not really prepared to go back to that trap style that they were playing, where you don't allow the matchup to be Henrik versus Ben Bishop. You kind of put a safety blanket over Ben Bishop and let the defensemen do the work, which they did. You force shots to the outside. You don't let these guys get in front of them. You know, there's no rebounds being allowed. And give all the credit in the world to the Lightning and their coaching staff and their players for doing that. I don't understand why the Rangers didn't adjust for that. I didn't also understand why it seemed they weren't as aggressive in this game. You had 2 power play chances, and again, there was a negative momentum shift in that game for the Rangers, and that's pretty much where their only chances could have been because there was the only 2 power plays of the game, I think, if I remember correctly, in Game 7. Third period starts, you get a goal by Killorn, and then you get another goal later on, a couple minutes later, wrist shot that beats Henrik, and then once they scored, that was basically it. The offense was just horrendous in that game. You could say we didn't have Matt Zuccarello, but the fact of the matter is everyone in the playoffs is hurt. We're going to see the series end, the Chicago Tampa Bay Lightning series end. You're going to see Duncan Keith just playing an hour a game, thinking seeing he has sprained MCLs and broken this and that. Everyone gets hurt. The teams don't announce it. I can't put it on one player not being there. As good as Zuccarello is, and his speed could have helped the series. I mean, the guy couldn't talk for 3 or 4 days and couldn't move. And we're just lucky to have him back for next year. But what it comes down to is you had an opportunity to win in your building in Game 7 in advance. You show that there were certain ways to beat this team. We exposed Ben Bishop in this series. They didn't take advantage of that. They let the defensive trap style beat them, and now we're home, and it's another year of you can't call King Henrik King unless you have a cup to hoist. And not that I want to take anything away from him because that man deserves to win a cup if anyone in the history of the NHL does. But it's definitely disheartening, and what it comes down to again is that the season was a failure in my eyes because we did not improve on what we did last year, when last year was the improbable run and this year was almost the run that everyone, at least in New York, tri-state area, expected. So you guys want to jump in, give your thoughts on it, and say goodbye to our New York Rangers? Go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you on the fact that the season was a complete failure. Mainly for the fact that everyone knows in hockey it's not the best team that always wins. if you look at the President's Trophy's winners since they actually started giving out the trophy, it's got to be I think only 26, 27% of the teams.
Yeah, you're right. One teams do not.
Yeah.
In recent memory for us, I mean, one teams have not really won it.
Yeah, it's not like Michael Jordan taking the Bulls to the playoffs and coasting through. These are actual games. There's competition between the first seed and the 8th seed.
We see how. I mean, these playoffs. I mean, it felt like how many weeks the Rangers play? It was over a month.
Yeah,
I mean, it feels like half a year.
Oh yeah, 100%.
What a grind it is. I mean, I'm not taking away from that. You're 100% right in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously failures in getting so close last year, and you could say arguably that the team during the regular season didn't deserve to be where they were last year, but they made it. And you could say that the team this year should have been in the finals this year, and they didn't. So there is a failure inherent in that. But to say that the season was a complete failure when you get a little bit of a resurgence from Rick Nash, you get Marty St. Louis, almost 100 years old, coming overall second on the team with points, tied with Kreider, who was a little bit of a revelation this year, plus the emergence of Derek Brassard. Now, if you want to say in the beginning of the season that the Rangers don't have a true number one center, and then after the Washington Capitals series, you can argue that Derek Stepan's the best center on the team. And then after the Lightning series, you can say that, yeah, once again, there's no difference really between Stepan and Brassard, and they're both number one centers. So the thing that sucks to me is that everyone's a year older. Girardi's a year older, Stahl's a year older. So next year isn't a guarantee that we go anywhere. But you hope to take a page out of the book of the Detroit Red Wings, who make it to the Stanley Cup Finals and lose in '95, lose in the Eastern Conference, or I don't know what conference that was in '96, but
Patrick.
They lose in the Patrick or the Prince of Wales conference in '96, and then they go back and win in '97 and win in '98. You hope to take it from there.
That's a good point. And there's the one narrative that we've had, myself and Joe, other Joe, I've had on this podcast the past couple of weeks has been that people are like, oh, the Rangers, Henrik another year older, this and that. When you look at the core of the Rangers, a lot of these players are like a year or two older than us. Like,
oh, yeah.
You have Stepan and Kreider, Ryan McDonough, even Brassard. Brassard's still a young guy. He's, mid to late 20s. I mean, our Rick Nash is our best goal scorer. I believe is only 31.
Mm-hmm.
Henrik is 33. In goalie years, that's like extremely young because the best goalies in the league sometimes aren't, they're hitting their peak at 36, 37. There's no doubt in my mind, and I'm sure you'd agree, Henrik easily has 4 to 5, more top shelf years that he could lead the team to a Stanley Cup and say, wow, all hail the king. And the defensive core too. I mean, yeah, Girardi's a year older, but you have Stahl. We'll have Yandel lock up for another year and a half in Yandelhut. What a great pickup I say there in the trade deadline. He was money in the playoffs.
I mean, aside from his defensive zone breakouts.
Well, yeah, I mean, he
that was really the whole team's problem.
He wasn't
anyway.
as bad as Dan Boyle was at some points, who also did improve later on in the series, especially in the Tampa Bay series. Maybe he had an extra spark. He used to play there. Who knows? But Keith Yandel on the offensive side was tremendous. Brassard, like you said, you make your money in the playoffs, and that guy, ice water in his veins, every single shift he played, he was great. And for a guy who struggled early on in his career in Columbus, when the trade first happened to bring him here, I was saying, oh, here we go, another underachiever, a guy who could, hope could be a decent third line center, and he's been awesome. He was
just a toss-in that one,
yeah,
sort of.
Essentially,
it was John Moore that we were really looking to get, and then we got Derek Dorsett, Derek Brassard in a bag of balls.
That's you're 100% right, and he's been in the playoffs. I mean, he's what you hope for. You want your centerman to take over. I mean, besides Lundqvist, I can't think of another performer who was that clutch and that meaningful to the Rangers than Derek Brassard. So I like the team going forward. I like the team next year. There's no reason in my mind that you can't say the Rangers are another favorite, especially in the East. The West will always be tough. The East is juggling. The Caps. They drop. They get better this year. The Penguins are now on the decline, even with two huge superstars. So you never know what's going on in the East. I still think the Rangers have a great core. We'll see what they do in the offseason with the whole restricted free agency mess. I know they have like Hagelin and Klein and a couple other guys they have to move around. I don't see Marty St. Louis being around next year. I don't think really anyone does. I don't even think he believes that. If they could move Dan Boyle, I'd probably do that again as well. That experiment didn't really work out. But the 95% of their core, the players you need, are there, and they're going to be back next year. And I think that, like you said, the great analogy with the Red Wings, they're getting a taste of it. We're getting closer and closer. Maybe we took a step back this past playoffs, but we're there. We're on like the precipice of it, and I like going forward. It still stinks. It stinks to watch this game, but it feels good knowing that it was not a one and done. Our window is not closed. I think our window is very much open.
But you also can't forget about all the kids we got, too. I mean, Jesper Fost was performing like a pro, especially in the first two series.
Right. Yeah,
He disappeared a little bit in the Tampa series, but that's when everyone was as fast or faster than him. But when he played against the bigger, more powerful teams in Pittsburgh and Washington, he really shone. And you can't forget, you got Lindbergh in Hartford.
Right.
You got the kid in the KHL.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, Pavel something.
Yes, with the B, right? B something, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Whatever. Point is, we're loaded. And
Exactly. You got kids coming up. You got
the goalies. The goalies are very deep too. Who knows? Make a move. Trade Cam Talbot in the offseason. Would I do it? Yes, because I just said that Lundqvist is 33, which in goalie years is very young. If you can get a top six forward, I think you have to.
Now San Luis, he's gone. He's free agent.
He has one more year left. They could buy him out.
They could buy him out, but they could also send him and Talbot over to Edmonton for somebody. Yeah. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, San Luis is not going to work out on the Rangers anymore,
no.
Especially with the speed that the Rangers play at. But if you send him to a young team, it's hard to say that he could accept this role, but if he accepts a role as a third liner on any team where he's the veteran presence, he could even go to Edmonton and be captain. I mean, you're not going to take it away from Nugent Hopkins probably, but he goes there. He makes any team infinitely better.
Right. That's one of the two ways to look at it, is you move him to a team, help the kids out, and then think, okay, accept this role, like you said, third liner, move him in a package with Talbot, get a good return, and he'll kind of just waste away until wherever he wants to stop. Because he has hockey left in him. You could wring him out and drain that last bit of hockey. He does. 100% he does. But would you want to go as a 40-year-old from a team that almost, touched the cup to out in Edmonton, out in Phoenix, out in wherever else, the Buffalo? You don't want to possibly do that. I think the Rangers definitely have to look at that. I think the Rangers definitely look into making a move to get something back for Cam Talbot. Cam Talbot's 28. He's on the cheap right now. It makes a lot of sense. The guy proved he could start. He saved our season. That's what during the regular season, he saved our season 100%. Henrik misses a month. If Talbot is 500 or worse, who knows how this season would have played out. But I think to get secondary scoring, especially, not that we need secondary scoring, because like you said, Kreider was unbelievable. We have Kevin Hayes, didn't even mention yet. Kevin Hayes, another revelation, and Nash was a dominant goal scorer this season. But if someone says they dangle a Taylor Hall or someone in front of you, you got to look into that. It makes no sense not to. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Rangers. Even a team that was just there, they still might make a lot of moves. I think I would keep Hagelin. I would try to keep Kevin Kline at all costs. And I would look to make a move to get a return in for Talbot, because of the play of Lundqvist is still going to be high, and because of all the immense goalie lineup talent we have beneath him. So I think it 100% makes sense. I know Gene didn't get a chance to talk yet. Your thoughts to put the fork in the Rangers season?
Oh yeah, I'm just like what just pissed me off most of all. So they were what? I think they were in this series. They won 1 out of 4 games at home. So I think they went
over
game
2 something minutes without scoring at home. Yeah.
They lost game 2, game 5, and game 7.
You don't deserve to win a cup, Joe.
Yeah, and I think game 7 and 5 game 5 they got shut out too. That was another 2-0 game.
Yes.
So in the 2 games where so I know this from the NBA. So everyone's like, oh, game 5 is the real do or die game. You got to win game 5 always. They get shut out. Then game 7. Literally the do or die game. You either win or your season's over, and they get shut out again. So that sucks. But
the game 5. I think the winner, when a series is 2-2, the winner of game 5 usually wins the series. I believe it was 79% of the time.
Yeah, it's something like that. But yeah, and I'm totally in with you. I think we should. So what Joe is saying something like, oh, another year older, and I think it definitely does hurt the Girardis, maybe even the Nashes, but still Nash pretty young. But then I think another year older, another year Kreider, another year older, JT Miller, another year older, all these guys another year older.
It's a positive.
So I'd say it evens out. So I'd say a lot of guys maybe taking a step back, a lot of guys going to take a step forward, and these guys, especially the guys taking a step forward, could be big goal scorers for us. So could really. And the defense always plays pretty well. With what's his name, Lundqvist, the best player in New York City, in the goal. Yeah. So I think could be big things. It sucks right now, but future's still bright.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. Like I keep on saying, it stinks watching this TV, and I hope that Chicago wins this just to see another dynasty, and as we're a bit older and more, I guess, cognizant of the sports world going on, because I know as we're younger, we don't really remember the Devils or maybe the Red Wings as much as we remember this.
Have we agreed that we're calling that a dynasty? 3 in 7 years.
I think we're trying to figure out a little off-air talk. And this is if you guys listen to this, want to tweet back at us and help us out with this. And it's just an opinion question, but what the requirement is for a dynasty. So we were saying how the Blackhawks would be 3 in 7 years. I think that's good enough. I think once you go, 3, because if you win, say 4 and 10 would be good. So I think 3 and 7 would be good. If they win this, I think I am picking them to win this. I think they've been there before. You have, the top, their defensive core is insane. I mean, you guys, Keith, Seabrook, Jarlison. You have a great skater like Comiskey on the third pairing there. A vet like Kimmo Timonen. You have guys all over the place who could play. You have a vet like Brad Richards starting a third line. Host probably one of the best two-way players in the game. Taves, another captain series. The guy is unbelievable. Patrick Kane, an elite scorer. I hope for my sake of watching this that they could expose the shaky defense and the goaltending of the Blackhawks. Of the Lightning. And in a way, I want to see it done because I don't want to see the Lightning win. The other half of me wants to say, oh, maybe the Lightning couldn't. They stopped the Rangers and they stopped the Blackhawks as well, so I feel a little bit better. I feel vindicated. I think they could expose them, and I think they will. I'm going to pick them to win the Cup. So we'll do a quick little predictions here. Any series in hockey is going to go 6 or 7 this late. There won't be a sweep. It won't be in 5. I'll say Blackhawks in 6.
I'd like to say Blackhawks, but part of me does worry about Duncan Keith, Seabrook, and Hjalmarsson playing 70 minutes a game, and Kimmo Timonen playing about 45 seconds, coming in the second, committing a penalty and then going out with a -2 rating.
Yep.
I'd like to say it's going to take its toll, but they showed time and time again that it doesn't.
Yeah, you see all these players, what they're going through. McDonough's playing with a broken ankle, a broken foot.
Yeah.
Who else had? Someone had the
Stahl had the frozen ankle,
right.
Yandel had the MC joint in his shoulder.
Yeah. All those. All these injuries. Like I said earlier, if you come out and say that Duncan Keith has broken lower half after this series is done, I would not be surprised. I'm watching all those OT games. They played versus Anaheim before. They're playing double overtime. He's logging over 50 minutes. It's just incredible. This guy's playing nearly an hour of an NHL game, and that shows you how much Quenneville relies on him because how much he means to that team. I don't think not playing Oduya or Comiskey or Timonen as much as the top 3 guys, Jarlison, Seabrook, and Keith. I'm not in love with that idea. I get you want to play your best players at the most crucial moments. I think you got to give them some. You got to roll 3 lines when you can. And Tampa's a team that could expose that. Tampa's a team if they want to play that high flying offense style like they did versus the Rangers when the Rangers beat them at their own game. Could it work on Chicago? Let's see. I think the Rangers had they had a stronger 1 to 6 defensive core than I think Chicago does. You could argue the top 3 of Chicago is better than the Rangers' top 3. It's up for debate. But 1 to 6, I take the Rangers. Could they beat Chicago? If they do, it's going to go in their favor. If they Tampa scores those 2 goals like they did versus the Rangers, and they just trap you, and they're going to force you to the outside. Maybe the Chicago's firepower could overtake that. That's the reason why I feel that they could win in 6. When you have all those guys, like I said, Kane and Sharp and Hossa and Taves, maybe you can overcome Richards. Maybe you could overcome the defensive style they were playing. The Rangers went ice cold. So I don't think Chicago will as cold. They've been here before. They know what to do. Quenneville is a phenomenal coach. He's been one of the longest tenured coaches in the NHL for a reason. He's a future Hall of Famer. He'll make adjustments. Not to take away from Alain Vigneault, who in his own right is a phenomenal coach. But I just can't see. I can't see Chicago freezing up like the Rangers did, and I think the experience matters.
I think it's just going to come down to basically what didn't happen in the Rangers-Lightning series was winning games at home. If Tampa, who has home ice advantage for the most part, can come out of these first 2 games with at least 1 win, obviously. If they go to Chicago down 0-2, that's the series right there. But if they can go 1-1 to Chicago, they've shown that they can win in tough environments on the road. Then again, whether you want to argue that Madison Square Garden is a tough environment to play in because it was like
not anymore.
It was like a mausoleum in there. So they've won in historic arenas. They've beaten original six teams. They've done basically everything you can do to set yourself up for a Stanley Cup run. If they can win the games at home, I'll say Lightning in 6.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to give this short. I think Blackhawks are going to win. I believe in experience. I think team that's been there before definitely has, probably I would say has the edge. And Lightning came out of nowhere, really. Anyway, Blackhawks going to win in 6. At the end of the series, they're going to wheel Duncan Keith out in an ambulance. That's the only way he's getting out of there.
He's one of those rare cases where maybe he should be up for the Conn Smythe just based on his minutes alone, and he should be up for it. That's another topic for another day. I'll make it closer to the end to see who the Conn Smythe winner is. My vote right now is still Henrik Lundqvist. No, but all right. So we have you picked the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
So pick the Blackhawks with an injured Duncan Keith. Joe picking Lightning in 6. I'm picking Blackhawks in 6. It just shows that the series, you pull people in the street, you probably get, pull 10 people, get 5 people saying Blackhawks, 5 people saying Lightning. And that's what you want. You want a good, long matchup like all the players have been. I feel like every series is going 6 games, 7 games. We're spoiled as NHL fans. I can't say as much for the NBA, the start, at least the early part of the playoffs. And they've been off for... I feel like a month at a time. This fast-paced game is going. I'm not sure what the score is right now, but it's been awesome for us to watch. It's bittersweet, but you still gotta love the NHL playoffs. I remember when the series, all these games are over, and it's like the middle of the summer, and NHL Network has like replays of like the first round or second round games, like Western Conference matches. They'll replay like Calgary Flames, Vancouver Canucks, and like that series was so physical. I just sit back and watch it. It's just awesome. It really stinks to see the Rangers season end. It was just a great feeling just going out with all your friends, your family, going to a packed bar, see everyone Rangers blue. I remember the Derek Stepan goal versus the Capitals, and just I was facing the two TVs were like facing each other, and I was looking at one, my dad was looking at the other, and when Stepan put that in, the whole place went nuts, and we just hugged, and there was tears, and it was just a great feeling, and nothing could really match that. Unlike a Rangers Cup run that everyone wants to see, since we haven't since 1994, and we were all 2 years old, and my father was there, and he saw it, and he was in the building when it was, and probably nothing can match that. I mean, as big as a football fan I am, a Yankees fan, a Knicks fan, just the Rangers are just a team where I don't know if it's the passion of the length of the series and how gritty it is and how tough it is, but there's just nothing like hockey and NHL playoffs. So it just takes a lot out of you to see a team go down like that. You had such high hopes for.
Yeah, not only that. I mean, you're spoiled if you're a Yankees and a Giants fan. If you're like me, you're a Mets, a Jets, and Knicks. Even going through soccer, I'm a fan of all pretty much the crappy teams, and it's just you watch a Cup run and then you watch an Eastern Conference Finals run, and after a while, you're just sitting here like, when the hell is it going to happen, man?
I know.
And I'll tell you what, if you were upset when the Rangers lost, think about looking at the TV when not only Ryan Callahan, but Anton Strawman and Brian Boyle.
Yeah.
When Brian Boyle lifts a cup up before Henrik Lundqvist, there's going to be not a dry eye in the Carlin household. I can tell you that much.
It's rough. In fairness to those three guys, they were pretty well like Rangers. That's the one thing.
Oh, of course.
That might make it worse because we like them
exactly.
so much. Our captain is now very close to winning a cup. Our former alternate Brad Rich is very close to winning a cup, and Strawman. People debate whether we should have kept Strawman or kept Girardi. Glenn Sather has a love affair for Dan Girardi, and I happen to like Dan. He's one of those homegrown guys. I think you got to give him his due, but maybe it wasn't the right call. Brian Boyle, another guy who we took a flyer on in a trade, made him into a good bottom line player or third line player. Taught him to maybe use his size and skate better, and he had a 20-goal season for us one of his years here. So it definitely stinks to see them in a different uniform and going on to win that. That stinks. It hurts bad.
Not only that, he goes to Tampa and he's wearing an A.
I know.
He might be one of the only fourth liners in the league with a letter on his jersey.
Again, he's well liked in the locker room. He's well liked here. He's always a fan favorite and a media favorite. So I mean, good luck to those guys. The one, I guess, the silver lining of this, like we said, was just that the Rangers window is still open. As long as we have 30 in net, we have a good core. And Alain Vigneault, who is one of the best coaches, I think, in our recent memory, what he's done with Vancouver and now, almost a cup and an Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7. So I guess the future still is bright for us, but right now it's just it's very, very tough to be a New York sports fan of the New York Rangers. But another similar, this is a segue I want to use. Our Knicks fans are definitely not happy right now. I know Andrew Carver, who writes for us, as well as myself, not happy that J.R. Smith, Amon Shumpert, and Timothy Mozgov are now also very close to winning a NBA championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers as they take on the Warriors, who have our coach, who we almost had instead of Derek Fisher, and that's Steve Kerr. So that's another funny. It's so sometimes so bad in New York sports. You just have to laugh and just say, "Oh, only the Knicks." As weird as it sounds, I may only want the Knicks to be bad, just as the joke of the league. When they're good, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. That one year they had 52, 54 wins, whatever.
The brightest year of Andrew Crawford's life.
Oh, unfortunately, yeah. He'll be listening to this too, so he knows we're taking shots.
He'll agree. He'll comment and he'll say, "Yeah, totally agree."
We haven't got his article yet on the predictions.
So what's actually worse? So we're saying ex-Rangers in the finals, in the Stanley Cup finals, ex-Knicks in the NBA finals. What's worse, when you come that close and miss it and see your ex-Rangers win?
That's a good question.
Or when you're the worst team in the league and you watch your ex-players go on?
I think, and I think Joel will agree with me, but I think I got to go with the Rangers because the Rangers are so close to winning and the Knicks aren't. The other problem with that lies basically with Ryan Callahan. Ryan Callahan with a CE for the Rangers, and seeing the Cats.
We lost J.R. Smith, who was going to the clubs out in New York.
Right, you lost
suspended, and Mozgov.
Mozgov didn't really develop here. J.R. Smith was probably hated by most Knicks fans, and Amon Shumpert, which is a guy who never really lived up to the full potential, of his career.
If it was a team other than the Knicks, I think I'd just expect the Knicks to be bad every year. Like if I was watching like JPP win a Super Bowl with bad example because they've won 2 Super Bowls, but dropping the titles. But it was something like Mark Sanchez winning a Super Bowl with. I think the Jets are usually decent. They're never terrible. They're always kind of in that middle range. But if someone like Mark Sanchez wanted to win a Super Bowl with the Patriots. It's got probably, and then for that 1 year, the Jets are absolutely awful. It's got to probably stay.
Again, it has to be. I think it has to be a player that does something significant for your team.
Yeah,
and I think you see Ryan Callahan went through plenty of playoff series, and Brian Boyle went through plenty of playoffs. They went to him and Strawman went to the Cup last year with the Rangers, and Callahan didn't because he was moved forward Marty St. Louis. But again, he wore the C, and he was part of that young core, that group that everyone thought. With him and Dubinsky and whoever else was there.
Hardy and Neeson.
Yeah, we thought that was going to be the core going forward. Instead, 2 years later, 3 years later, our core is a whole different slew of guys. I think that's definitely the answer. I think it matters on how well the team plays with those players.
I don't think you can really argue that it's worse for the Knicks players who left versus the Rangers players who left. I think it's pretty clear that the Rangers who left were more close to the heart.
Oh, yeah.
Shumpert never really panned out. J.R. Smith was chucking up about 200 threes a game.
A lot of them were not well-liked players at all.
Exactly.
A lot of people were happy to see J.R. get out of town.
Yeah. But the thing that I think baffles me the most about the Knicks is that, Mozgov left a while ago in the Nuggets deal, but he goes to the Nuggets, and then he comes to Cleveland he went for a first and a second round, or was it just a first-round pick?
Two first.
Even worse.
Yeah.
And J.R. Smith and Amon Shumpert went for nothing.
A 2019 second round pick.
A 2019 second round pick.
My friend Frank Gasolo I work with makes the joke always in studio that we can now watch the Knicks' future player in his 8th grade practice and 8th grade games because that's how old he would be if he came right out of school.
Yeah, you almost hope the world ends in 2018 so that everybody realizes how dumb of a move this was.
Yeah.
That's just the thing. It's just, how do you let... you can argue that J.R. Smith was just a bad presence on the team and that Amon Shumpert never panned out, and you can make all those arguments till you're blue in the face, but how do you let 2 guys who are starters and stars on your team, really, in a team that needs people like that more than ever? How do you let that go for a bowl of soup?
You may have opened the argument that the Knicks, the movements, at least the trades themselves, were worse because of the return. And that's a good point. When you think about what they got from Mozgov, the Knicks didn't get that when he went to Denver, or what other teams, because he's a rim protector now. Rim protectors are the new hot item in the NBA. Getting, Phil Jackson only getting a second round pick for Shumpert, who we say didn't pan out, but he's always been a great defender. Unfortunately, just being a good perimeter defender doesn't always get you to be a top player in the NBA. You could be a Tony Allen. Tony Allen's not going to go first overall in a fantasy draft. That's the point. J.R. Smith, another guy, is an enigma. He'll be sixth man of the year one year. The next day he'll go out to a club for too long, and he won't be the useful player you need. And you get a second round pick. Second round picks usually don't even pan out. That's a good argument for the return. Might be put this closer because at least the Rangers, when they moved Callahan, we got St. Louis. I mean, yes, Brian Boyle and Strawman did sign Elster, but the Rangers used that money for other players, which helped the roster, I guess, in a way. I mean, yes, the Knicks got around 6 and change cap room for moving Smith and Shumpert, but what are they going to do with that cap room? I don't know.
And in the case of the Rangers, you can't even argue at really any point that they were going to get anything really tangible or good for Boyle at that point. So him leaving Strawman, you're going to you move a top 4 defenseman, you're going to get something, but someone had to go between him and Girardi, and that he was just a cap casualty. But Boyle, aside from his 20-goal season, he's a penalty-killing grinder, and he wasn't even that good at killing penalties until the playoffs when he left.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
He was big and slow and never used his body.
You're
it just so happens he leaves, and Cooper might have taught him something that no one else could.
No, you're right about that. So all this basketball talk, I guess we'll get into it. I know I said off-air my pick, and you guys are shocked by that, but I am not going to pick against LeBron James. I think he's the best player to possibly ever step on a basketball court because of what he could do, his size. I think one-on-one he could beat anyone. That being said, I think A-Rod off the court has like Alex Rodriguez disease, where he just can't do anything right, can't say anything right. So he's a very strange person. But I think basketball, in terms of ability and what he's done with this team, from what I've heard of how much the players love being around him, how he somehow tamed J.R. Smith, which I don't know it was possible for anyone to do. And he did that. And even without Kevin Love, who in a way makes his team better because of his defensive liability, when he played power forward for them, LeBron can now play the 4, and he could pass out of that position down the low block. It just makes the whole team a whole lot better. I won't get into X and O's. A lot of people have been picking the Warriors. I've seen it in a short series, and I think it's going to be the opposite. I think it's going to be the Cavs in a shorter series. I don't trust the Warriors as a jump shooting team to if they don't hit their shots in a game, the Cavs can steal one at home. That gets in their head. They have no guys with experience, maybe outside of Iguodala, who won a gold medal. They have no one to really guard LeBron James. There's not one person. Klay Thompson doesn't have the size. Curry can't. Iguodala maybe again doesn't have the thickness, even the height that LeBron has. You're not going to put. Draymond Green, I don't think has the athleticism. It's just he's just a hard match. And there's not really many people in the league, maybe outside of Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler, who could maybe slow down LeBron. So yes, I know LeBron lost last year to the Spurs, but the Spurs have experience. The Spurs have 3 probable Hall of Famers, 4, counting Popovich, and they've been there. They know what to do. They know what it takes. And also, I don't think that the Heat team was as good as this Cavaliers team. This Cavaliers team has Kyrie Irving. They have J.R. Smith, who's been great. They have Mozgov, who's been great. They have Shumpert, who can lock down. Probably is going to. They probably put him on Steph Curry. They have the pieces in the right spots they need. Even without Kevin Love, like I said, I still think it makes the team better. Tristan Thompson has been a force in the boards. I don't know why people are they're not really selling. In Vegas, I think Bovada has the Warriors at like minus 240, and the Cavs plus like 180 or something like that. And I'm just shocked by just the odd. They have Steph Curry to win the Finals MVP. But I think it's like 8-1, and LeBron's 17-10 or some. The numbers are just numbers that really surprised me that no one's really buying into them. And I think that when you have the best player in the world, you can't bet against him. I think he's hungry. I think he's going to give the first title to Cleveland in 80 years. I think it'd be a great sports story for him to come back and win in year 1. When he said in the beginning of the year it's going to take some time. I think he's playing the best basketball of his career. So, as a person who thinks LeBron's an idiot off the court, I respect him on the court, and I'm going to go Cavs in 5.
Yeah, the whole off the court thing. It's kind of been following Barstool's whole thing because they've always flipping out about LeBron James for some reason or another. It's just been he always does one thing here or there that makes you oh, come on, why LeBron? This whole the whole run through the playoffs, it's been every single day something new. It's all right, LeBron, all right, social media blackout, but he's liking these tweets on Twitter. Someone drops out of medical school to go be a model because LeBron liked her pick. That actually happened. True story. Can't make this stuff up.
I know.
And then
That's a real thing.
totally real thing.
Yeah, he liked the picture on Instagram of like a girl, and it was like a booty type Instagram like page. And apparently, a couple days later, that she was so happy that LeBron liked it. She goes, "Well, I'm not going to go to medical school. I want to become like a model or something." So it's a real thing.
Yeah. Anyways, just
Life choices.
the stupidity that follows LeBron James. But I mean, NBA Finals more than anything, like you see like experience win out so many times. Like anytime you see like, all right, brand new team versus a team that's been there before. Like first year the Heat were in the finals. They were a team that were getting their feet wet. They played against the Mavericks, a team that's been together forever, a team that's been through the grind of the playoffs. They went to the finals a few years earlier, lost to the Heat. Then it happened.
Led by a top 20 player of all time and a phenomenal coach.
Right, exactly. And then you see them. Then when they finally get it, the year after, when they made it to the finals with some experience against a team that was still a year away, probably in the Oklahoma City Thunder. But yes, you see experience win out a lot. And then when two experienced teams go at it, that's what like you saw the Heat versus Spurs series, like really down to the wire, stuff like that. And Spurs were just playing for vengeance last year. Anyway, so. We could say, I think LeBron has the experience, but overall the Cavaliers really don't. I mean, this is Kyrie's first time in the playoffs. I mean, I was about to say he loves first time in the playoffs, but he's out. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot tougher than people are letting on, but it's tough to pick against LeBron. But I really think the Warriors are one of the best overall teams I've seen in a really long time. I think they're really up there with those Heat teams, honestly, because I think the Heat were very top heavy, but the Warriors really top to bottom. A lot of talent all throughout. They're built on the jump shot, obviously, but I think they bring a lot more than just that. So I think people want, like, a lot of people, even in the playoffs, like when they went against Memphis, like when they lost those 2 games to Memphis, so like people want to write them off, like, oh, they're a jump shooting team. You know what? Like you could stop them. They really do a lot more than just that. So that's what I think. I'm going to go Warriors, but a lot closer. I'm going to say Warriors about 6, maybe even 7.
Warriors in 6.5.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Gene on that. I'm going to say Warriors in 6. I mean, the Warriors do make their money shooting the 3, and I mean, it's another argument that you could say that's what the game is evolving to, but it's not quite there yet anyway. For 2 reasons. One, they were also the number one team in team defense. So while they do make their money on offense on the 3, they do play good D, and they've shown that. Aside from a few games in Memphis throughout the playoffs. 2 is just, I don't think in my life I've ever seen anyone who's able to create their own shot like Steph Curry can behind the arc. You know, you got people who can hit threes that are just getting the ball chucked at them when you got 4 guys on one side and they sneak to the back. But Steph Curry is one-on-one with somebody, takes 1 step to the left of a pick, and he's wide open, whether it's toe on the line or if he's 13 feet behind the arc. Every ball he shoots up, you're like, that's going in. That's going in.
Yeah.
There's no stopping it.
No, I can. I mean,
even if it's contested.
You guys make great points, and I can't. There's really, you're right. I totally. Great team defense, great shooting the ball. They do have guys who can get to the hole. They are a complete team. Their bench is phenomenal. I mean, they're both rookie head coaches, and a real advantage there. Although I think what Steve Kerr did in this regular season, if they win, if the Warriors win, in terms of what they did regular season and like flying through the playoffs, it's one of the greatest accomplishments in NBA history. Like they're one of the top, I think, 10 or 12 records ever. I can't argue with that. I just feel like it's the best team versus the best player, and I feel like, and they also have a great other player in Kyrie Irving, and I just feel like when you're a generational player, we don't know what Steph Curry will be. He's one of the greatest shooters ever. I mean, and Steve Nash just said that. I'm not going to disagree with that, and you're right. But creating a shot, I mean, the guy makes circus shots. You know, he shoots 20, 25 feet behind, like, you know, outside of the basket. It's crazy. It's crazy how accurate he is. It's crazy how that he, his size and, you know, his upbringing from what schools he went to didn't really have the pedigree. Didn't go, like, his brother went to Duke, like he went to Davidson, and he just somehow developed himself into this all-world player. It's awesome. I like what they've done there. I like the whole team. I think they're fun for the NBA to have, a new face, a new great team concept. But for some reason, I just feel like LeBron's driven, and it's hard to pick a guy against a guy who's 6'9", 265, and can do anything he wants on the court. And I think when you have a piece like you have a Tristan Thompson and Mozgov who could give Bogan and Draymond Green a challenge. And then you have Shumpert who can guard in the wing, and JR, who if he gets hot, he gets very, very hot. And JR's talented. As much as we want to make fun of him, he's a talented basketball player. I mean, we've seen him at his best. We've seen him at his worst, too. But LeBron is trying to put him in check on the worst part. And Kyrie Irving, one of the best ball handlers, could do a ton of things in the court. He's almost like an N1 type player. I just have a feeling. My gut just says to go Cavs, and that's really what it comes down to. Because I think either team. I mean, this series, I think it's gonna be an awesome series. I think we're gonna get spoiled with the NHL playoffs and with the finals. I think it's gonna go. It could be a very, very tough series, but I just feel like every game will be close. But I still feel like the Cavs will somehow find a way to just inch them out at the end of each one. I think LeBron will take over.
See, my thing is the Warriors have nothing to lose in this series. If the Warriors lose, I don't think there's a true argument that they can't be here next year. They can't be here coming soon. LeBron has been in this situation carrying Cleveland on his back.
I don't know if he has any pressure. I don't think he does. I think he's won. I think the pressure's off him. And then he did say, he kind of covered all his bases by saying, "Oh, when I'm here in Cleveland, we're not going to win this year. We have a long ways to go. Oh, we miss Kevin Love."
He's been sticking to that throughout the playoffs too. He has been the definition of all right, next game up. Anytime they win, he's all right. We talk about all the stupid things he does off the court. It's almost like there's that one window when he's in the press conference, he just says all the right things. He's all right, he doesn't get too big. He's oh, we did a lot of good things. He just always says what they got to do better next game. I got to give him that credit. So he's never really talked this team up.
In terms of basketball, he's fine.
Yeah.
The problem is it's not always the basketball stuff what he says. He says a lot of other dumb stuff. And you're right. The Warriors, they're no joke, and they're here to stay. They're going to be here for a while. They're going to, we see the Spurs decline. Maybe the Trailblazers go away if Aldridge splits up with Lillard, and the Mavs didn't look so great at all. The Rockets will be around, but in my opinion, it'll probably be a Rockets-Warriors kind of neck and neck, depending on what the Clippers do with DeAndre, for a very long time. As long as you have Harden and Howard, and you have Curry and Thompson and Bogan and Draymond Green, whoever else, they're going to be there. But I feel like going into these playoffs, LeBron's won. LeBron says we need to take some time. We don't have Kevin Love. It's they're almost playing with the house money. Yes, Cleveland is dying for it. Cleveland's right there.
See, I don't think the pressure's on LeBron. I think the pressure's on Cleveland's front office because they make the move to pick up, what's his name, David Blatt.
Yeah.
And then they get LeBron, right? You could say that they don't pick Blatt if they have LeBron in the bag. They don't sign Blatt.
That's an interesting thing because when you have a guy like LeBron, it's almost like he's the front office. It's almost like he is the one that picks the coach, and they know maybe Blatt would be the guy who would just be the yes man. And I think in a way that David Blatt is a good coach. I mean, he's revered internationally. He's never been in the NBA. It's hard to mesh an NBA personality with him. Look who LeBron won with in Miami. It's Eric Spoelstra. There's nothing there. Eric Spoelstra now leaves, and he does a decent job without LeBron. Yeah, big drop off. But on the cost of the playoffs, without him, without Chris Bosh, and with an off-injured Dwayne Wade. So I think David Blatt is still a good coach, and he's done good things with this team. LeBron took that 2-week hiatus, and he did a great job. And LeBron has been backing him lately too, which is another smart thing he has been doing. But it's hard when you have a guy like LeBron who's probably the biggest star in sports in America, who he calls the shots. He okayed the Smith and Shumpert trade. He okayed the Love signing for Wiggins. Trade for Wiggins and Love. A lot of things go through him. Partially David Griffin, their GM. Probably Dan Gilbert a little bit too. So I think in a way that I don't know how much LeBron knew going in of who the coach was going to be. I don't know. We don't know that. We don't know how much the Cavs knew before they signed him. There's rumors that Calipari was told by the Cavs, we're going to get him. The only person who really knew was LeBron and Lee Jenkins, who wrote the article. And no one really knows how much those talks went on. But I think it's hard with a guy like LeBron to find a guy who can mesh with him because he's a player and a coach and a GM and an owner and whatever else he is. He's everything. So I understand what you're saying with that. And they definitely have pressure now because they're so close and because now Cleveland fans are going, holy crap, we could possibly do this. They did do this. What? How many years ago was he? 4 or 5 years ago? It's there is pressure, but I think LeBron himself is playing with the house money because he's done it before, and he knows that he kind of covered his bases by saying, hey, we're not going to be ready until I say we are, but his talent is undeniable, and that's why they're here.
I just want to say one thing. Like, you want to look at two coaches who could, like, for one thing, they're so similar but could not be any further apart. So you like David Blatt and Steve Kerr, both first-year coaches, both like have a pretty good resume. Never first NBA head coaching job, they have a pretty good resume. David Blatt overseas. Steve Kerr spent a long time in the front office of the Suns.
Right.
Steve, both in the finals first year. Steve Kerr is already being crowned as like one of the league's premier coaches.
Right.
And win or lose, David Blatt might be fired.
Well, yeah, right. Because if LeBron wants to move somewhere else, wants his guy in there, they have to listen to him. Then that's the way it works. That's the way when you have the best player. You've seen similar things happen with Kobe. It's just the nature of the business, and that's what happens when you deal with a guy who's more than a generational talent. He's going to be remembered forever as one of possibly go down as the best. You could put LeBron in your top 10. You could put him probably maybe 5 or 6 right now. In his career, he's only 30. He has years left. His ceiling we still haven't seen it yet, so that's why you kind of have to cater to him, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that because look what he's did with this team. That's what they are. Right. So no, I think it's a good point, and I think it's gonna be a really fun series to watch. I'm glad for it, not just because I work there, but because I want to see some fun basketball. Those last two, the Western and Eastern Conference series are a bit of a bore, and I guess now that I don't have the Rangers to stress over, I could focus more on my job and basketball.
There hasn't been good basketball in over a month.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So we're excited for tomorrow. So we covered all the big stories, all the finals. We said goodbye to the Rangers. One of the big reasons why we brought Joe here is to talk about the other big news of this week and change, I think it's been. And there was, I believe, some bigger news yesterday as Sepp Blatter stepped down as FIFA president. So me and Gene are not going to pretend we know anything, because we really don't. But I am still very intrigued by this, and I guess the three things I want to get to for you to explain, because I know you can very well. Number one would be what happened leading up until the original, when the news broke? What was the problem there? Then explain what happened at the voting that he was reelected, and now, since the whole fallout of this, I guess 3 would just be give your future predictions of what will happen next. So I guess the lead up, the middle, and then I guess going forward. That's what.
So you want the story?
Let's give us the story.
Yeah,
I'm very excited for this.
All right. So basically, the beginning to this, and it starts around. I mean, well, it starts at really the inception of FIFA, because this is an organization that you could just say is rotten to the core, and it's the worst example of.
For how long?
This particular investigation started in 2012.
Okay.
But FIFA itself, this dates back. This stuff goes back. This at least to France's World Cup, which I believe was '98.
Oh wow.
So FIFA itself is just a rotten organization, and that's really what gets exposed throughout all of this. The investigation itself wasn't focused on FIFA. So the investigation is, and you'll notice that this is all in alphabet soup. You have FIFA, which is the governing body of soccer in the world. Then you have UEFA, which is the governing body of soccer in Europe.
Okay.
You have an African governing body, an Asian, and Oceania, a North American and Central American, which is known as CONCACAF, and a South American, which is known as CONMEBOL. They're all just long acronyms. So this investigation, and the reason why the U.S. is involved in this, which seems weird to anybody who doesn't understand what's going on, because the U.S. has no global stake in soccer, per se. So you have CONCACAF executives, and you have CONMEBOL executives, and you have some advertising agencies, and they are basically looking at places to host their major tournaments, whether it's the Gold Cup, whether it's Copa America, things like that. And in order to do this, these go to votes. Now, you have a clean way of doing voting where you just ask people where they want it. Do they want this tournament in Paraguay, or do they want this tournament in Brazil, or do they want it?
With the voting now, do we have tens? Do we have hundreds? Do we have a handful? How many are?
You have a representative from each country, basically.
Okay.
And what happens is you have these executives who have, they have stuff on the line. If a tournament comes to America, America gets money. Not necessarily from hosting the tournament, from prize money or hosting the tournament itself, but you have tourists coming in, you have things like that. So you have traffic in your country. So at times it's good, at times it's bad, depending on if you're ready to host the tournament. But the government and these governing bodies see this, and they want to host these tournaments. In order to ensure that they host these tournaments, they offer bribes. So you have this guy who is the head of the Football Association in Trinidad and Tobago and the former FIFA vice president and I believe former CONCACAF head. His name is Jack Warner. All right, reports of him handing somebody an envelope, $40,000 cash. Here's your vote. This is where I want this. And the best part about it is they reject it. And he goes, if you're pious, go open a church. This is our business. This is what it is. So
this is public knowledge.
This is public knowledge, wow. Yeah. So what happened was you have this guy who was basically the CONCACAF right-hand man, and he's just one of the most unfortunate humans to look at. Just a big dude, big beard. Looks like he should have nothing to do with the game of soccer. His name's Chuck Blazer. Okay. He is involved thoroughly in all of this. Doesn't file a tax return for 10 years. You could see where the problem is, especially when this guy, and I wrote about this because this is one of the funnier parts of this, he owns pays $6,000 a month rent for a Trump Tower hotel for his cats. This is like, speaking of, you can't make this stuff up. This guy spends more money a month than I might have spent in my life for his cats.
That's now I don't want to go too far. Maybe you're gonna answer this, but like, why was this not almost allowed? But why was this never stopped? Like, why did it come to this point now? What's like when was this public knowledge? Like when the guy said that, when did this happen? Generally? Okay, so the first thing, these people are. And I mean, you see with like the mafia and things like that, and businesses like Enron, WorldCom, Tyco. Yeah. The thing the Department of Justice in the United States hates the most is money laundering, racketeering, and bribery, and they go after it. But you can't just jump in immediately. Right. You have to watch it. It just turned out that Blazer was one of the easiest cases to watch, and they jumped on him. And privately, he said, "If you cut me a deal, almost, I'll flip. I'll be an informant." So flash to 2012. And like I said, the reason the U.S. was so involved in this is because when it was CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, this money laundering and these transfers and these bribes, they're all going through U.S. banks. Okay. So now there's evidence in the U.S.'s hands. So like this wasn't a FIFA thing. This was a CONCACAF CONMEBOL thing. Gotcha. Fast forward to the London Olympics in 2012. Blazer's wearing a wire. He goes in. He's having conversations with all these people, all these advertising execs, and he's just finding out more and more stuff, basically. And it just more and more people are setting themselves up for ultimately what comes. Just so happens that it's not just happening in America. Now you're getting evidence of people like Warner himself accepting like millions of dollars for his vote to send the World Cup to France. Or all these African nations accepting all these bribes to get it in South Africa. And Russia in 2018, you know that wasn't clean. Oh, yeah. Qatar in 2022, where the temperature is hotter than the sun in the summer, so much so that they have to move the World Cup to the winter. Yeah. There's no way that's a clean bit. I was looking at some Nate Silver article. I don't know if it was by Nate Silver. It was another 538 article, and they had the like charts of stuff about doing it there as opposed to doing it other places, and like their fandom was like minimal, like percent, and like the heat was like the average was like in the hundreds,
122 degrees.
It was just nothing in the charts made sense for a host city.
Yeah,
and obviously.
I mean, you go to the U.S. You have football stadiums. You have soccer stadiums. You have stadiums that can host this. I mean, you have stadiums that don't host anything except major events. They can host it. You go to England. You have arguably the most prominent soccer league in the world in the Premier League. Right. You have 20 teams that can host a game in a country barely the size of like a mid-range U.S. state. You can do the same in Spain and Portugal, who can joint host it. The Netherlands and Belgium, who coincidentally were the only clean bid for the 2022 World Cup. Wow. They didn't give it to them. So you have places that can do it. So all this stuff just kind of stinks to high heaven when you have a a country in the Middle East which is itself surrounded by war and poverty and death, without the stadiums, that's going to cost billions of dollars, and it comes out almost, as of now, like 1,200 lives of migrant workers who can't leave the country if they come there to work because their passports are held by the managers of the job.
Right.
So it's a slave state. So nothing is right about it in any sense of the word.
So, not to cut you off because you're on a roll right now. So when that was first announced that it was going there, so now everyone knew that, like you said, it sunk to high heaven. So it was like we knew it's bad, but it's okay because we have someone on it with a wire and we're going to get
not quite.
Or was it kind of like, or maybe it is clean? Like what? Yeah, explain
at that point, it's like the U.S. Department of Justice at that point had, or an attorney from the U.S. goes in and files a report very similar to the Wells report about the ethics and morality of these votes and things like that. And he comes out, and there's been a lot of conflicting reports about what he said, but his general consensus is that this isn't right. But an ethics judge in Germany who's faintly related to FIFA in some way, I forget how it is, overturns it, or basically says, well, they might have broken a law, but they didn't break like the code of ethics or something like that. Real weird stuff. Oh, stuff like that. There's no way this guy didn't get paid to say this. Things like that, and basically has a bone to pick with somebody in the U.S. right there. So there's all little things that the U.S. are going to get involved, and now you have money going through the U.S. that shouldn't be, people not paying their taxes, all the things that are just piling up on the Department of Justice desk, and boom, they can get involved. It just so happens that the things that were said during the London Olympics and in other times with Chuck Blazer also encompassed people in like European sectors and things like that. And so that's why Sepp Blatter gets involved, because all this stuff happens at the FIFA headquarters. He himself, think of something going wrong in the NFL and Goodell just saying, well, I can't, and he says this in his election speech, that I know things are dirty, but I myself can't, I can't keep an eye on everybody at all times. If you're in a room with another guy and that guy gets killed, you're going to be a witness. You got something to do with it. I mean, if it's in your basement especially.
Right. And
that's what this is. This is a crime happening on his watch. Over and over and over and over and over again.
And why is he allowing that?
And why is he allowing it? And how is nobody saying anything? And what it really boils down to is you have countries like Andorra. I don't know. Think like the smallest countries you can think of. Montserrat, 6,000 people. Part of FIFA. When the World Cup happens, the money that FIFA makes is split evenly to every single country. And that's why you see these African countries and the small countries that they don't make money from anything else, really. They have a personal stake in this. Because if something changes, they don't make that money. If someone new comes in and basically says, well, Qatar, their national team is ranked like 200th in the world. Why should they make as much money as Germany, who's the number one team? Why isn't it like a tiered thing or like a hierarchy thing? If that happens, the income that these countries make is gone.
Yeah.
And you'll see teams that will just be gone. And then it'll turn into everything else in the soccer world, basically, where it's 5 teams competing and then everyone else is struggling to stay relevant. So you have countries with a personal stake, and you have so much money on the line, and that's why there's nothing that was ever done. It was almost sort of like, well, we can't say anything. What are we going to do? But the line was crossed when there was money laundering and things going on in the U.S. And then it became a U.S. legal issue. And that's where the problem lied.
That's where we are today.
Yeah.
So essentially, if there's nothing that crossed the U.S. and the U.S. banks, this could still be going on.
Exactly. And there would be almost, I'm going to say there would be no reason for anyone to say anything aside from, countries like Brazil spending like $4 billion on stadiums that are now parking lots. The stadium in Manaus, that is at like the most southern part of Brazil that they couldn't drive the parts to. They had to float them down the Amazon River on barges. That stadium was used for like 5 games during the World Cup and is now a bus depot. It's John Oliver said it on Last Week Tonight. He goes, FIFA literally paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Like you can't make that up.
Built like right, and that was the one that I can't remember. That was the one built like right in the middle of the Amazon jungle, right? Like, yeah, like literally like one of the most protected places on earth. FIFA came in, knocked down a few acres of trees, and put up a stadium. And that's what you see like in a lot of these. Like every time I watch a World Cup, so like I remember the one in South Africa, the one in Brazil, obviously. Every time FIFA leaves, they cripple the country that they were in. They just spend all this money building stadiums, which is why I never got why they never put it in the United States, which has like 130 different stadiums in every other city.
Well, the United States did have it. They had it in '94. The thing is they like to cycle it around. The only country that's really hosted it more than once in like a 20-year span or 30-year span has been Mexico, and that was because there was stuff going on in Colombia who was supposed to host it, and then 2 years out they just had it moved to Mexico because they had the stadiums to do it. But you're absolutely right. These countries they're crippled. Brazil's still dealing with it. I mean, Brazil is a country where they're not only one of the number one soccer nations in the world, and they're they're a major player in being a big country. They're a recognizable name and things like that. But they're a country that struggles with just awful poverty and just awful living conditions. Right. They have hospitals that the hallways are lined with people, and that people are just dying because everyone's catching everyone's diseases and no one can do nothing about it. You got people roaming the street with guns, killing each other. Right. I know it's just not a safe place to be. And to take $4 billion to untaxed, by the way, FIFA's exempt from taxes in World Cup nations that they host, which is just another thing. Oh, there's so much more. To come in and just say, yeah, give us all this money for a month, and then we're out, and we're not going to do anything to help you with anything because, well, that's what we do. We're a non-profit with $1 billion in the bank, but that's just a reserve, says Sepp Blatter. This is the organization that you're dealing with. There's no logic to it. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just rotten to the core.
So now all this. So what are they going to do now going forward? So now he resigned, and you talk about all this problem. You know, we know the problems that come into countries. They destroy them, they leave. Is there a plan to stop that? Is there a plan to find somebody who's going to end this corrupt, all these corrupt acts that are going on? Just, I know you talk about the whole money, how it's spread equal. It's not in a hierarchy because teams they'd fold and become irrelevant. Countries would they need that money. What is their plan going forward? Is it even speculated yet? Or
see, that's the thing is that this is all happening so quickly. Think of a reign that goes on for years, and all of a sudden in 3 days it's turned on its head. The thing that scares me the most, and that I keep having to reference this or make an analogy with, is when France ousted Louis XIII or Louis XIV. And then Robespierre takes over in a reign of terror, literally just beheading everyone. Like, that's what you can find. Like, if someone comes in to replace Blatter and is just awful, like, what happens? Does FIFA just go the way of boxing, where you have 15 different governing bodies and you just have, like, no control and it's just a free-for-all and nothing makes sense and you got 8 World Cups? You don't know. Could somebody come in and reform everything? Yeah. But in order to do that, it's not one person that needs to change.
Right.
If
a whole lot of countries.
If Sepp Blatter leaves, that's one corrupt individual. That's one drop of an ocean. You know, you need all the FA, like all the individual countries' FAs got to go. All the individual continental FAs, like their heads got to go. It's got to be a clean sweep. Otherwise, what? You take out one criminal but leave 10 million?
Yeah,
like it's not going to do anything, and you're just going to have the same things over and over. And they might be on a smaller scale because no one wants to get caught with no one wants to get a basically 10-year tax evasion dossier thrown on their desk. But it's just not a good situation to be in.
What do you think is going to happen if you had to put something? If you had to write your prediction out, say your prediction out, what do you think will happen? Seeing what you have been seeing the past couple of days.
I mean, I think you're going to find that people are going to have to cool. They're going to have to cool it with the illegalities that they've been so accustomed to. Otherwise, no one's job is safe, and not that anyone's job is safe as it is right now. But if they don't, then it's going to be assured that they're gone. So I think you might see the 2018 World Cup stay where it is. Stay in Russia.
Yeah.
And I think that might be even more of a political thing, because if you take the World Cup away from Russia in 2018, that's a little more than 2 years away. Who's it going to go to? It's going to have to go to a developed nation with the stadiums. It's going to go to the U.S. or it's going to go to England. If you take away something from Putin and give it to the U.S. right now, are you kidding? That's World War III waiting to happen.
Oh, yeah.
The Qatari World Cup in 2022, that's got to go to a vote. It's got to go to a vote. In my opinion, it should be the Netherlands, Belgium, or Spain, Portugal, because they have the stadiums, they have the area to hold people, they're developed, they're European nations. I mean, they can handle that right now. It might not be great for them because in such short notice that they're going to have to really work to put additions onto stadiums and things just to house the number of people that are going to come. So it's not a best case scenario for anybody, but it's a start.
Right.
And you hope that the 2026 World Cup is a clean vote. You hope that what's that going to be? The 2030 World Cup is a clean vote. You hope it just starts a domino effect, that you can do this the right way. You know, I mean, it's not even a great thing to host the World Cup. Like, no one needs to be getting paid $40 million to have 2,000 people die building a stadium.
Right.
You know? That's the sad reality. But it needs to clean up. It needs to clean up so, like I said, it doesn't go the way of boxing. When you just have
all
anarchy.
Belts and,
you have anarchy.
Yeah.
That can't be a thing, because this is truly the world sport.
That is. Do you think it's possible for that to happen? Do you think it's possible to have some kind of reform and be clean?
Of course it's possible.
But
is it likely? No. Is it likely to happen?
Or relatively soon?
Is it likely to happen immediately? Yes.
You think so?
I think it's likely that the next vote's clean. Or the next couple tournaments that are picked are clean. Because they have to be, because they have all eyes on them.
Right.
But 10 years from now? Why?
So you think a quick fix and then they'll start
relaxing? I think that's the way it's going to be, because, how did I make $1 billion in my life? Well, lying, and nobody paid attention. We could probably do that again when everyone stops caring about this and there's something else going on in the world. That's what it's going to be. Because all eyes are on FIFA right now. You can't do anything. You can't be an idiot.
No, you're right. It's a story. It's an American, a national story here. People don't even know much about it, and it's the front. It's top news.
Well, yeah, and the worst part about it is that people think America just saw what was going on in FIFA and kicked down the door and just laid a red, white, and blue wiener on FIFA's head and was like, here it is, This is how it goes, but that's not the case. It was just there was tax evasion going on in CONCACAF that we saw how deep the rabbit hole went, and we said, okay, there's something that needs to be done.
It's something scary than we thought, right?
Yeah, and we teamed up with. I mean, the Swiss government jumped right in too. We got them on our side, which is rare because usually the Swiss are just
neutral.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're known for.
Yeah.
But they jumped in because it's happening in their country too. There's clear tax evasion and stuff like that at FIFA is going on.
Especially when it comes to the banks, the Swiss banks, they go all in, to protect everyone's identity.
Exactly.
They don't get involved in any of that.
Exactly.
How bad FIFA was.
And when you have every country in the world has an executive that has a offshore account in Trinidad,
right?
I mean the Cayman Islands, rather. There's something going on. There's something going on. It was clear as day, but there was just never quite a reason for something to happen. But CONCACAF's offices are in Miami. There it was. And the U.S. jumped on it. It wasn't a patriotic eagle flexing its muscles. There was a crime committed on U.S. soil. The Department of Justice investigated, and turned out to be much crazier than anyone thought it could be.
I mean, it's insane to think of something that's not even, we hear things we have the NBA, NHL, MLB. It's not. This is international. This is so much bigger than all of that. And everyone, billions of people care about this stuff. And so think that all this corruption is going on, something of that magnitude, you just can't wrap your head around to think of all that's going on. But I mean, the reality is, like you just explained. Which if anyone needs to know anything about this, listen to this podcast. We say the best for the last. At the end of this, you got to listen to all the crap in the beginning about the Rangers and the Knicks and the Lightning and the Blackhawks and the Warriors and the Cavaliers to get to Joe explaining this whole debacle with FIFA and Sepp Blatter and money laundering and all that good stuff. But so definitely listen to this. But it's just I couldn't imagine, let alone one of our leagues here doing something like that. But on an international scale with multiple countries, tons of countries and tons of people. Like you were saying, just this whole web of who's connected. And it involves world politics too. That's the funny part. You
Yeah.
start moving it. It's just absurd, and how big this is, and how much this actually matters.
Think about like the owner of the Minnesota Vikings. And I mean, who's to say that this isn't how it actually happens? But
Very true.
think about the owner of the Minnesota Vikings going around and handing all the other 31 NFL owners an envelope with $100,000 cash, saying we're going to host the Super Bowl next year. It's just like, I mean, there's no equivalent in the other sports because there's not a neutral playoff ground.
Right.
It's all home fields. But, I mean, that's the only thing I could equate it to. And just, that's on the smallest possible scale.
Right.
Now, up it by a factor of 100, where you got somebody handing somebody a $10 million check and just saying, just vote for me.
Yeah.
And the funniest things I've seen through all of this are Jack Warner, the guy I was saying before, who said the whole thing about if you're pious, open up a church. So he gets arrested, leaves jail, citing exhaustion, goes to the hospital, gets released from the hospital, and like 2 hours later, he's at a rally for his innocence, jumping up and singing "Every Little Thing Is Gonna Be All Right."
Oh my God.
Just like, how cocky are you?
Oh,
and the same guy holds up an Onion article.
Oh,
Citing that FIFA was going to set up another World Cup. And like, you gotta, if you don't understand this, and even if you don't understand what I'm saying, John Oliver, he was on the Daily Show. He's a British guy. He does two big segments on like FIFA as a whole and this scandal itself. He was like, if you worked in FIFA and you looked at an Onion article, and as ridiculous as it was, you said, yeah, that sounds like something FIFA would do. Like, you know something's wrong there. Like, that's crazy.
So before we wrap this up and end this, because it is, like I said, a great segment to listen to and understand everything. When is the next big day? Or I mean, maybe you don't know this, but when do you foresee something else coming up? Is there are there court dates? Are there something that's new to be released? Do we know it? Is it random? Is it going to be for a while? Is it going to be soon? I
mean, the fact that Blatter himself stepped down means he's sort of taking himself out of the public eye for a little bit. So it's not, in my opinion, something that I think is going to go to court tomorrow.
Okay.
You know, it's something that could take a very long time, especially in building the case against Blatter, who you're going to have to extradite. You're going to have to get him to the U.S. if this is where it's all going to take place. All these people you got to get to the country, and that's going to be the big problem. The CONCACAF and CONMEBOL people, they're already here. They're already in North, South, and Central America. You can get them easy.
Right.
It's the people in Switzerland. It's the people in Africa. It's that we might not have the best relationships with their countries. Getting them here is going to be the problem. So It's going to be a headache. It's going to be something that's going to take a while. But the most important thing is that something might begin to change. And you can only hope it doesn't change for the worse, for A, the better of the game, and B, the financial security of a lot of these smaller countries.
Well, can't say much better than that. So
before we wrap up, in much lighter soccer news, Champions League finals this Saturday. It's Juventus versus Barcelona. It's two teams that are going for a treble, which is 3 major trophies. You're winning your league, winning your domestic cup, and then winning the biggest cup in Europe, which is the Champions League. Juventus is stacked. Barcelona is stacked. Barcelona is the overwhelming favorite, which is crazy. I mean, in my opinion, they're much better and they're going to win. But just the fact that you have the Spanish champions and the Italian champions going against each other, and you could just say, well, they're two of the best teams in Europe, but one is just leaps and bounds better than the other. It's going to be probably it's going to be a game where if you don't watch soccer, watch this game, because you'll become a fan of one of these two teams, and you're going to see some awesome talent, some awesome skill, and you're going to see Messi in his prime, and you're going to see Andrea Pirlo, an Italian legend, playing his last game before he comes over to NYCFC, which is the big report. So it's a ton of good stuff going to happen. Well, so I tune in Saturday at 2:45.
Heard it straight from the soccer man yourself for a DNS podcast. Big soccer game coming up. Soccer match, sorry. Like I said, I can't repeat this enough. It's a big story in America. If you don't know anything about the FIFA stuff, the Sepp Blatter stuff, the tax and the fraud and whatever, the money laundering, all that garbage that's going on that Joe talked about, listen to this. We're gonna promote this one. Great job today. We recapped. I said Warriors Cavs finals, Blackhawks Lightning finals. We said goodbye to the Rangers season. and most of all the FIFA issues. Next week, maybe we'll get back to some less finals. So we'll get back to the Mets and Yankees. I know Tanaka had a great start today. Harvey is pitching well. DeGrom's pitching well. You got Syndergaard now starting that mix as well. So we're going to see how these teams continue. NFL has been kind of quiet. I know we tried to mention Cam Newton signed for a huge deal. Adrian Peterson reported back to the Vikings like he should, like any 30-year-old running back who beats his kid in the nuts with a stick should. So he's back, and he stopped whining. But I'm sure as we keep going on, we'll get more and more of football, some fantasy stuff we'll get into. It's great doing the three-man weave. I like doing that a lot. We got to get better headsets, better equipment for that, but we needed to today because today was a really big breaking news. I'm going to get that FIFA stuff in because we cover all sports here. As always, follow us. We're at DNS_podcast on Twitter. The blog is dishingand swishing.com. No more .wordpress or anything like that. Just read all our blogs there. We'll put this podcast up by tomorrow, hopefully, if Joe is done watching Entourage with his friends. You can follow me at Edward L. Murphy at Twitter. We have Joe's at Run Carlin Run. Gene has a new one. What are you at Gene DeMayo? Just at Gene DeMayo. DeMayo, DEMAIO. I remember that for like 9-10 years running now. So follow us all. You're going to get some great stuff there. It was a long podcast, but we needed to because chock full of stuff. I think we did a great job today. Hopefully have more. Joe in the future, maybe he'll become a regular now because other Joe is never around. Gene, he's a working man. Even though he's sold out, he still comes down here and gives us his best. So appreciate you stopping by after work. Any last words you guys want to say until next week?
NYCFC's winless streak continues at about 100 games, dead last in the MLS. Things are going awful, but Frank Lampard's coming over from England. Hopefully Pirlo comes from Italy and things turn around, and maybe we have another good team in New York to talk about before I blow my brains out.
We need that.
Yeah, well, hey, good team in New York Yankees. That's about it. A-Rod, greatest player of all time. Said it right. You heard it here first.
The hot takes to the end. We got to end some laughs after that negative money laundering news. So, again, thanks, guys. Appreciate it a lot. And we'll come back next week with some more stuff and always trying to improve for you guys. So, thanks again for all our listeners and readers on the blog. See you next week.
Shout out to Applebee's for following us on Twitter.
We're very famous with that. Thank you, Applebee's. Good night.